So I did a poll recently, and 50% of the people who responded said they would be using Vanguard as their ISA provider this year. It's probably time we did some more Vanguard content, isn't it? So today we'll start what will eventually become a series of videos where we explore all of the different investment options on the Vanguard platform, starting today with the global funds. We'll look at what they do, what the fees are, and then I'll give you my opinion on which I think is best. Ultimately though, that's all this is, just an opinion. I'm not a qualified financial advisor. If you want advice tailored to your own specific circumstances, go seek one out. Now at the bottom in the description, there's timestamps. So go ahead and use those if you don't like weird intros, but if you do use them, be warned. There may be some obscure 90s references that seem a little bit out of context without watching the intro, or even if you do watch the intro, don't fight it. That's just the way things go around here. Do you remember that scene in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? The original, don't at me about that shady remake. They walk in and it's a world full of mad sweets and a river of what we are told is chocolate. But in all honesty, looks a lot more like blood to me. As Gene Wilder breaks out into a lovely tune, "This is me." Now while most would look at this face and think, there is a goofy blonde boy in awe at all the wonderful sights before him, I say no. That right there, my friends, is terror. Heart racing, pulse pounding, Willy Wonka shriveling terror.
And they're certainly not showing.
As others see a world of options before them, I see nothing but overwhelming choice and a river of blood. And where's all the women Oompa Loompas? Why aren't any of them over the age of 50? Serious questions to be answered here, guys. Other serious questions we need answering include: what sweets do you pick? Where do you go first? What do you choose? When you have a world of choice, gummy bears the size of my cat, and around 15 different options for lollipops, how am I meant to pick? This look right here says I already know that in 5 minutes I'll be sat in a dark corner rocking backwards and forwards, muttering about olive oil and chewing on a foam shrimp. Now while the Vanguard website might not have the visual appeal of Gene Wilder's World of Sweets, the idea of investing in the whole world at once and being faced with 11 different ways to buy that world on the Vanguard platform is probably as overwhelming to you and me as a 49th birthday party is to an Oompa Loompa. So come with me and we'll see if we can decode this world of pure frustration. For me, if I'm buying a globally focused fund, I'm looking to access the world in one purchase, to buy as many businesses as possible in as many different countries so as to achieve world diversification. One argument for buying individual funds that focus on specific countries is that, for example, if you buy the S&P 500, which just focuses on American companies, or the FTSE 100, which focuses on the top 100 in the UK, if that individual country performs badly, or if it just doesn't perform at the pace of the rest of the wider world, then all of your eggs are in one basket. These global funds look to combat that by giving you access to the whole world economy at once, the good and the bad. By spreading your risk so far and wide, you might not get the sexiest levels of growth that you would say with the S&P 500 some years, but you're also going to limit your downside. You're going to reduce the risk of investing in one country where it all goes badly. So if the aim of buying a global fund is to provide global diversification, the first thing we will look at is how well each of these funds diversifies across the world. All of the options we discuss can be found under this section here on the investment options. I won't be discussing active funds today, just index funds and ETFs. The table on screen now shows the name of the fund and how many different businesses they invest in as a number. Beyond this, I've marked if they invest in large, medium or small cap businesses. And then at the end, if they are focused on just the developing world or do they consider both the developed and emerging markets. What does all that mean? So first of all, some of these funds will only invest in certain size businesses. So a large cap business is a business with a market capitalization or a value of above $10 billion, whereas a small cap business is any business with a value between 300 million and 1 billion. So some of these funds will only target large businesses. Some of them will only target small businesses. Some of the funds will invest in all sizes of businesses. Typically, the more types of businesses that you're investing in, the more diversified you are. You're not just investing in the big businesses, you're investing in big and small. When it comes to the developed point, some of these funds will only invest in developed countries, for example, America or England. Now, while that might be seen as safer because these countries are more established, a lot of the emerging markets can produce higher growth, but can also produce higher losses. If it's a world fund and you want global diversification, you need to invite everyone to the party. Where are all the women, Wonka? I don't see any.
Sausage fest.
The FTSE Global All Cap Index Fund is the only fund that invests in all business sizes across both the developed and emerging markets. But that doesn't mean it's the only one worth investing in. But to start off with, let's rule out a few of the other funds based on the fact that they don't quite live up to the standards of a true global diversification compared to others, mainly for the reason of making it slightly easier, and so that this video doesn't become a 12-disc director's cut box set. We will cut them out for reasons like how low they are on the total amount of businesses they invest in. So for example, the World High Dividend Fund, which picks companies from around the world with high dividend payments. So for that reason, of course, is limited in its global reach. You're not getting in. We'll also eliminate any funds that are focused on one particular size of business. For example, the Global Small Cap, which only looks to invest in smaller businesses. Sorry, mate. For the same reason, we'll also eliminate any index only tracking the developed world, as I want those emerging market countries to be part of things. So once we get rid of everything with a developed world focus, small cap or a dividend focus, we are left with three choices that tick all if not most of the boxes. They provide world diversification across a number of different sizes of businesses in both developed and emerging markets. Let's look at the fees. The fees on these three, and really across all of the global options, are simple, as they are much of a muchness. Of the three world funds we have left in our selection, only 0.02% separates them in terms of fees. So if you slapped £1,000 into each of these funds and left it for 30 years, assuming they all grew the same amount each year, the difference in fees at the end would only actually be a few pounds across them. What's most surprising here is that the ESG fund has a comparable fee to the others. The ESG Global All Cap UCITS ETF, ticker symbol V3AM, is actually a relatively new fund to Vanguard. I cover ESG funds in more detail here, but essentially they're aimed at investors who want to put their morals ahead of their investment decisions, with ESG standing for environmental, social and governance. Typically, for the privilege of being a nice person, you will pay a higher fee to access these ESG funds, with the justification being that the screening process to make sure if a business is good or not costs more money. I'm impressed to see that this ESG fund has nearly identical fees to the others and also invests in all cap sizes, including small cap, in both established and emerging markets. Honestly, I do doubt how well these ESG funds can police their own criteria, and I do think there's an element of just cashing in on a craze here, like vegan burgers at KFC.
No chicken!
The only way to be truly sure that your investments meet your own morals is to pick those investments yourself. But this is a good start, and it's good to see here that Vanguard aren't bending you over a barrel for trying to be a nice person. Three we've selected all offer a wide range of diversification, even if the ESG fund and the FTSE All Cap do offer more. The fees are much of a muchness. Is there any other way that we can separate them? Now, the final point that we could look at is ease of use. Now, while I feel this is a really minor point and wouldn't really sway my investment decision away from one fund to the other, I do think it's a good way to maybe split them up even further. So the FTSE All Cap is an index fund and is accumulating, whereas the other two are ETFs, which mean they are not accumulating. Accumulation just means that any dividends you receive are automatically reinvested back into the fund. Now, personally, I would always look to reinvest my dividends to assist with the benefits of compounding long term. And with the FTSE All Cap, that work is done here for you automatically. With the other two, which are ETFs, they're not accumulating. You will still receive dividends, but those dividends are paid as cash on balance on the platform. Now, you will then need to reinvest those dividends yourself, which is, a nice job to do. The issue is here, if your dividends aren't enough to buy one unit cost of the fund, of the ETF, so basically if the price is £100 per unit and you get £1 in dividends, you're going to need to wait for 100 dividend payments to have enough to be able to buy one unit of that fund. So you might have cash sat around for a while before you can reinvest it. A minor inconvenience, but something worth considering. Now, it wouldn't be fair of me to sit here talking about these global funds without touching on any potential negatives. And there is one thing that applies to all of them that a lot of people, I think, might see as a potential negative, or at least something that they should be aware of. So I pointed out before, the benefit of a global fund over, say, buying an index fund for a particular country is the fact that you spread that risk. But what if I told you that with all of these funds, around 60% of the cash that you put in goes into American businesses? This is a byproduct of indexes allocating funds according to market capitalization. That basically means the biggest businesses get more cash put into them than the smaller ones. Now, because America is full of big businesses and the stock market there has done pretty well in the last few years, that means more of your money, around 60% of it, is going to go to American markets. But this is a fair way of doing it because America does count for a large proportion of the world's stock market. Also, these global funds rebalance automatically. So let's say America did start to decrease in its influence in the world and Madagascar became the new world superpower. The global index funds and ETFs would reflect this, funneling money away from America into Madagascar. So there is that auto rebalancing feature of these funds. This doesn't bother me all too much, but it might be worth considering if you're someone who already holds indexes aimed at America, such as the S&P 500. By buying a global fund as well, you could be placing more chips on America than you may want to. If you want to water down that American bias within the global funds, you could always look to supplement in other index funds or ETFs that don't focus on American markets. So you could look at something like an emerging markets fund to spread your risk and diversify further. When it comes to the world fund options on Vanguard, I find it really hard to get past the FTSE Global All Cap Index Fund accumulation. It offers massive diversification across all of the available business sizes and is accumulating. The ESG fund is a surprise second place. And if you don't want nasty-ish in your portfolio, it is a great one to consider. VWRL looks bad in comparison, but honestly, I love this fund and I use it in my 212 portfolio. It's a shame it misses out on the small cap stuff, but you could always add a little bit of the global small cap index fund to add that element if you wish. Do you know what's funny? Last week we made a video talking about how index funds might ruin the world, and this week we're talking about how to own the world using index funds. There's something not quite right there.